Well, there's been a lot of news so far. We had the big stock market drop that just recently happened. There was apparently some disappointing news with the jobs report. And then the chairman of the Federal Reserve was talking about possibly raising or lowering interest rates in September. And apparently, there were just a whole host of things that spooked the markets. So people are very worried about that. I'm going to be taking a look at the USA chart to kind of see, what's going on there. And I did find some interesting parallels with the Great Depression. And I'm going to be talking about this. This could actually end up being a little worse than we imagine. Also, what I'm going to be taking a look at today is, interestingly enough, we have a lot of parallels with some of the planetary placements to what was going on right before Pearl Harbor and the US entry into World War II. And I'm going to be exploring that today. So, this is some really intense information, and I really want to get it out there. If you're new to my channel, make sure you like and subscribe. By the way, I do practice Vedic sidereal astrology. So your sign may be different using this method. And also, if you're interested in a private reading, check down below for details. And by the way, astrology readings are for entertainment purposes only. Now, the first thing I want to do is talk about the Saturn transit, because I do feel that this is relevant with the economy. So let me pull up the chart of August for us. This is actually August 21st, because on that day, there's an important transit that I'm going to point out in a few minutes here. Now, Saturn over here in Aquarius, it's been there since January 2023, and it's going to stay there until March of 2025. Now, Saturn is currently retrograde. So it started its retrograde motion in June of 2024, and it's going to end its retrograde motion in November of 2024. I'm throwing out a bunch of dates here. But the thing about it is, when Saturn's in the 11th house of Aquarius, Aquarius is the natural 11th house, you have to know that the 11th house represents the people, it represents the stock market, it represents networks, it represents trade. So Saturn's there, it's making some changes. I've actually been surprised that we haven't had a stock market fall before this time, but it does make sense now, since Saturn's retrograde, that Saturn's kind of bringing the karma home to roost, so to speak. So that's really what's going on. The USA is also in something called Sade Sati. For those of you that have watched my previous videos, or haven't watched my previous videos, Sade Sati is when transiting Saturn is going over the natal moon in the chart. And it's a really big deal in Vedic astrology, because it's a period of misfortune and bad luck. And I'm going to be explaining that shortly. But this has something to do with what's going on economically. And also, I did notice, and we're gonna show this in just a minute here. Sade Sati, the USA was in a Sade Sati period for most of the Great Depression. So that's kind of interesting too. Now let's go ahead and explain what Sade Sati is for the USA. Now, Sade Sati can bring a lot of misfortune. I mean, it could bring financial misfortune, but also, when we're thinking about international conflict as well, we know that as of the making of this video, there's some really bad tensions in the Middle East right now. So those could definitely, lead to a larger involvement around the world. So we have to be careful with that. And I think I accidentally put the chart up, and I'm meaning to put up the slide. All right, so Sade Sati takes place, if you're new to this, it takes place when Saturn enters the sign before your natal moon, and then it transits the sign of your natal moon, and then it transits the sign after your natal moon. That's a total of about 7.5 years. Sometimes it can go 8, depending on retrogrades and things like that. But when Saturn transits those three signs, and this could happen in your personal chart, by the way, it's usually a time of a great difficulty. There's a lot of trials, there's a lot of heavy karma. Now, the USA is in Sade Sati. It started back in March 2020. You all know what was going on around that time. And then it's going to end in about February of 2028. So it's about 8 years. And now there's a lot of karmic lessons that are coming up. So even, past this point, we're in the middle of it right now, because Saturn's in Aquarius. Saturn's going to go into Pisces in March of 2025. the USA is still going to be in Sade Sati then as well. So there's a lot of karma coming up. Remember, I did say that Saturn in the sign of Aquarius, it is the natural 11th house, which does has to do with the economy, stock markets, things like that. I did feel that there was going to be a reorganization of the economy, and I still feel that. I feel like there's something that needs to get fixed in it, because we have a lot of issues, for example, like affordable housing, because the 11th house represents like the working class. So the working class is really struggling right now. Maybe in the last couple of years, Wall Street's been doing really good, but the working class has been hurting really bad. Now, let's talk about when I was doing some research about the Great Depression, because I was trying to find out, was there anything similar to this time period? What happened in Sade Satis in the USA past? Well, I went back to first the 2008 financial crisis, and I didn't really see any similarity there with what's going on now. But when I went back to the Great Depression, I found a lot of similarity to what's going on now. So let's pull up the slide on that. So this is interesting. This could be actually, this financial issue that's coming up could be very serious if we're looking at the history. Remember, these are like reincarnational cycles of karma that we're essentially talking about. So the past USA Sade Sati, among some of the Sade Satis, was April 1931 to May of 1939. Notice that this is the time period before World War II as well. So I do want to put that out there. There's this global prospect of this war, that possible war or something along those lines. Well, we're in a very similar period right now. The Great Depression officially was between 1929 and 1939. So most of the Great Depression took place during this USA Sade Sati. So there's a lot of parallels. There's a lot of common themes here. So we know that this could potentially be very serious. The stock market drop, some of the fundamentals, those kind of things, this could be very serious because of the similarities. What's good about astrology is we can look at the past to figure out, what's going on. It does help give us a lot of information. Now, the next thing I want to talk about, so we know that's kind of bad. We're also in a period, and this is very interesting, and actually it's quite alarming. There's another astrologer on YouTube that talked about the similarities of the planet Uranus being in the sign of Taurus when World War II took place. And so I did investigations, and I found it was just more than just Uranus and Jupiter and Taurus. There was a lot of other similarities. And let me pull up the slideshow to explain that, because this shows just how intense of a time we're in right now. So we're already in this Sade Sati, well, at least for those of you who live in the United States, but this is going to be affecting the whole world. So December 7th, 1941, that was when Pearl Harbor took place. That was when Pearl Harbor, the base was attacked, and that was brought about the USA entry in the World War II. So I was curious about looking at that. Now, Jupiter is at 23 degrees of Taurus. Uranus is at 4 degrees of Taurus. Neptune is in Virgo. Pluto is in Cancer. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at the chart for August 21st. And keep in mind, if the planets are within a 3-degree orb of these degrees, it's very similar. It's very powerful. Okay, so let's go ahead and pull up the chart. And I found this actually quite shocking, to be honest. So this is August 21st, but this is going to be influencing. Remember, these are very slow moving planets, especially Uranus and the outer planets, very slow moving planets. So we have Uranus on the 21st is going to be at 3 degrees. Remember, in Pearl Harbor, it was at 4 degrees of Taurus. And then we have Jupiter at 23 degrees, and Jupiter was at 23 degrees when the Pearl Harbor happened. Okay, that's interesting. The other thing we have is in Pearl Harbor, we have Pluto right over here. Pluto was in the sign of Cancer, but now it's in the sign of Capricorn in direct opposition. So it's just in the opposite sign, which is interesting. Then if we look at Neptune over here, it's in the sign of Pisces right now. And in Pearl Harbor, it was directly in Virgo. So look at all the commonalities. What's the chances of that? That we have Uranus right where it is, Jupiter right where it is, and now so Pluto and Neptune, they're not in the same place in the zodiac because these are very slow moving planets, but they're in direct opposition, influencing the signs that they were in. So that's important to consider with this. This makes it very alarming to the prospect of conflict. And I've been talking about that. We also have coming up in November and December, we have the Mars retrograde that's going to be happening, and that's hitting some very important planets on a lot of politicians. I'll be doing some other videos on that, but that's going to be adding a lot of fuel to the cosmic fire, so to speak. That's going to be happening. The stationing of Mars is going to be around December 5th. So I'm definitely feeling and predicting that between now and the end of the year, there's going to be some very intense events that are going to be bringing about shocking change to the world. Okay. So we are in a really turbulent period, and then throw in the USA elections there too. Let me bring up the slides just so you all can remember, so you can see kind of what we just talked about with the chart. So Pearl Harbor, remember Jupiter was at 23 degrees of Taurus. In August 2024, Jupiter will be at 23 degrees of Taurus. 1941, Uranus is at 4 degrees of Taurus. August 2024, Uranus is at 3 degrees of Taurus. Okay, 1941, Neptune is in Virgo. August 2024, Neptune's in the opposite sign of Pisces. 1941, Pluto's in Cancer. August 2024, Pluto's in opposite sign of Capricorn. So, I mean, we have all of these synchronicities right here. Plus, we have the Sade Sati and the similarities to the Great Depression. And I know this sounds like kind of like a very fearful time, but I think it's important to be aware that when we're watching the news, that we don't think that the things that are happening are not serious, because I'm seeing some very serious things happening. Okay. And I feel like there's some intense events. The month of August could be very intense itself, because we did see the Jupiter and Uranus are going to be at those exact degrees, but also all the way to the end of the year, because when we look at these kind of transits, because they're slow moving transits, they're going to be influencing the next, 30 to 90 days out. We have the eclipses. We have an eclipse happening in September, and then we have an eclipse happening in October, and then we have the November election. Then we have the Mars station going retrograde in December, November and December. So there's a lot of really tough transits that are coming up. I just want to give you all a heads up. The stock market issues that are happening right now, I believe this could be quite serious based on the astrological data that I have. I think that this is something that we need to keep an eye on, certainly. Let me know what you think down below. I will be more than happy to read all your comments. Thank you for watching, and I will see you all in the next one.